as opposed to some kind of abstract idea of mental illness brought about by hormonal or neurological balance. But myself, my own sense of despair, particularly looking at it from a perspective of mental health issues and addiction, is that there is an unaddressed yearning for a kind of oneness, togetherness, and like, you know, to your point earlier about Brent, indeed for love. And when, like, you talk about that sense of awe of like the appreciation of an animal, the love of an animal, and the sort of regard and gratitude for having an animal love you and care for you, or the beauty of nature, or the deep beauty of the cosmos, what I feel like, in my own appreciation, understanding, stroke, belief in God is that there is a kind of, in the love of it, in the awareness of rightness itself, there is an indication that there is such a thing as rightness. Not that there any one particular group or ideology has unique, particular and special access to it. And I really firmly, deeply believe that spirituality is for me, not for me to tell other people, "Oi, I don't reckon you should be gay," or "I don't reckon you should be allowed to do it." Like, I feel like it's, I do my shit.
In the Bible it says you should pray secretly.
Oh wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, like there is something sort of deeply private about it. But I also think, Ricky, that there is a social consequence to, I don't necessarily want to say atheism, because I completely agree with your point that there's good and bad, you know, in like beyond those kind of limited taxonomies. But like, I do feel like when people think there's no purpose or meaning, that and that needn't necessarily be just because of a belief in God, that it creates cultures that are oddly materialistic, nihilistic. And I feel like in the last 20 years, we're seeing more and more worship of self, worship of individual.
Well, of course, there's a new narcissism, of course, and I don't know why. I think social media is partly to blame. I think people being rewarded for bad behaviour is partly to blame, you know, magazines or TV or whatever. You know, I did a speech in the Big Brother house as Andy Millman in Extras, and again, that was at the beginning of it, and now it's got worse. But a couple of points. I do think there's people crave a oneness, even if we don't know about understanding about why we're here, because again, that's very human. We're inquisitive. We want to know why. We want the answer why. And some people don't accept. We don't know yet, but we're on the way. They go, no. Well, there's no, you know, the God of the gaps. We understand that. Well, if you don't know, explain it. God did it. Okay, well, it doesn't really solve anything. Even down to the, I put a joke in Afterlife where Kat's bothering me, and she says that how did it all come from? Somewhere from nothing. And I go, well, where did it all come from then? She goes, God made it. I go, okay, where did God come from? She went, he's always been around. I go, simple as that, innit? So. You know, it doesn't answer the question, but I get it. And I think, apart from people wanting there to be some sort of divine justice, because, you know, that would be great. Good people would be rewarded, bad people would be punished. Brilliant. Okay, it doesn't work like that. You know, you only have to look at, you know, children in Africa being born with cancer, and that. You know, we know that's not. We know mysterious ways isn't an explanation, okay? That to me is someone who doesn't know the answer and says mysterious ways. But apart from that, you're right, we're seeking the answer. Why are we here? I think we think that, hold on, well, it's too good. It's too good to be chance. Everything's perfect. Well, it seems that way. You know, it's like Douglas Adams' puddle. You know, when it imagines this, I fit this hole perfectly. But I think you're right. We are scared and alone, and the idea of death is horrible. What, you'll never exist again? What was the point? And again, I talk about this in Afterlife 1, where I say, Kath's saying that if you think it's, you know, there's no heaven, why don't you kill yourself? And I say, so if you're watching a really good film, but you know it's going to end, you might as well just stop it. She went, no, because I can't watch it again. And I say, I think that's the amazing thing about life. You can't watch it again. You know, one day you'll hug, you know, your mum for the last time. You'll smell your last flower. You'll eat your last meal. You won't know it's your last, but it will be your last. And so you've got to make the most of everything. And it is a terrifying prospect. It is kind of sad that you will never exist again, I think. But it doesn't mean it's not true. You know, the bottom line is, I can't believe something I don't believe. And so how do I find meaning? Well, we are here. We are here. The chances of us being us, you being you and me being me, existing now, that sperm hitting that egg is 400 trillion to 1. You know, we're not special, but we are lucky. We do exist. It's incredible. And I think of it, it's like a holiday. We don't exist for 13.5 billion years. Then we explode into this mass, this electronic blob of thought, introspection, love, hate, fear, beauty, horror, for 80, 90, 100 years if we're lucky. Then we die and we never exist again. We return, our atoms return, and it carries on, right? And that's not scary, because I think people are scared of death because they don't know what's beyond. And someone said to me, well, what do you think it feels like when you die? And I say, like the 13.5 billion years before I was born. And that was all right. So, but the big thing is injecting meaning. I think you're totally right. When you start thinking about it, why are we here? Well, I mean, it's not even the how, but why. Well, to live your life to the fullest and not hurt anyone. To leave the world in a better place than it was when you came into it. To experience everything, all the reasons, all the obvious reasons, you know, love, wine, dogs, learning, all these great things that you can do every minute of every day that you're alive, and then you check out. You go, I'm done, thanks, and it's done, and it's beautiful. It's fucking beautiful.
It is beautiful. But I was struck when you said that by a few things. One is like this sort of like the injection of meaning, as in, you know, like meaning would have to be imported externally, fabricated somehow, invented. Whereas I think on some level I feel that meaning is inhered, and that the meaning is in the kind of zeal that you have when you describe the things that give you love, pleasure, you know, connection, whether it's wine or dogs or whatever. I've had like some experiences like through meditation, and when I took drugs too young, and now I'm not allowed to do ayahuasca or LSD or them things that I would definitely be doing if I wasn't in recovery. But I had like these experiences that were a kind of, I would say, a sort of an evaporation of self and yet a continued awareness. I know that my consciousness is connected to my biology, but I have a sense somewhat derived from the fact that, you know, you can't trace how mechanical parts ever become conscious, that consciousness may be elemental somehow. Now that doesn't point to a god in a traditional patriarchal or domineering sense, but it sort of points to an element that's very difficult to quantify, whether that's the deep intelligence of nature, the deep mathematics of biochemistry and biology, and the essential mystery of consciousness itself, you know, commonly referred to as the hard problem. And through these sort of individual experiences, whilst I've not had anything that you would call typically religious, Jesus emerging out of a tunnel, Ganesh lashing around, or any of that sort of stuff, what I've had is like it's highly bloody interpretive, because say there's this one breath thing I do, you breathe from the abdomen very aggressively, and then you sort of take a sharp inhale, and you nearly, well, a medical man would say what you're doing there is hyperventilating and nearly passing out. But from the inside, what it feels like is bloody hell. For this moment, I'm aware and I am not me. What is this? What is this? Is there a possibility that my awareness, your awareness, the awareness of all animals, and an awareness that's impossible to read is somehow present in all nature, in all matter? And if that's true, then there's a kind of a genuine cohesion and togetherness between all of the beings of the earth and beyond. And those people that can't actually enjoy the lives that we are privileged to have, of the red wine or the dogs or whatever, like, I'm not saying that's some sort of comfort to them, but in fact those of us that are in privileged position might feel newly incentivized to work towards a different kind of society and system that is more reflective of those values. Now that doesn't necessarily require monotheism, pantheism or any of those things, but it is somewhat underwritten by a kind of a sameness and a oneness, and how that might relate to justice. And also there is a sort of a personal experience of mystery in it. I wonder what you feel about that, and if you're curious about psychedelics and that and altered states and that.
You know, I love a good mystery, and you're right. It is a mystery. All science it does is it's a discipline that follows the evidence. And what science keeps saying, and some people say this is a flaw, that it's been wrong before. Well, science never been wrong before. Our interpretation, science has been wrong before. You know, science is just a way to look and understand the physical universe. And what science says, it keeps saying, okay, this is the least wrong theory we've got so far. And then the next day it goes, okay, we're even less wrong today. We were less wrong today. You know, they've mapped the beginning of the universe to a fraction of a second, which is pretty close. But I think science keeps proving itself over and over again, and the fact that we don't understand, you know, the mind-body problem completely yet, that is the beauty. And the more we understand, the more questions it throws up. It's like, you know, people say the missing link. There's this fossil and there's this fossil, and we find that one, and people go, no, there's two missing links, so you can't win, you know. And all science can do is just keep filling the gaps and finding new gaps. But yeah, you're right. You know, I think that it's amazing what intelligence is. What you know, I'm a determinist, which changes nothing. I believe that free will was an illusion. So be it. If it feels like it, it might as well be. But to analyse it and go, well, we're machines. We are machines. We are machines. We're machines trying to understand ourselves, and that's hard. Will there one day be a computer that is suffering from anxiety? I reckon so. I reckon so. I reckon there'd be a genius computer that's worried about shit. I really do.
Yeah, that's the summit.
We're lumps of meat. We're chimps with brains the size of a planet. Of course we go mad and try and kill each other and worry about what's the point. Of course we do. It's overwhelming. And the more you think about it, the more frightening it is. So I just think that you know, my new show, Supernature, I start with saying it's called Supernature for two reasons. One, I want to debunk the supernatural. I don't believe in anything supernatural. I think that anything that exists is by definition part of nature and is explainable. If not now, then eventually. And also supernature, because nature is super enough. We don't need angels and unicorns. We've got the fucking octopus. And then I go into, you know, we don't need to look. I feel we don't need to look elsewhere. That doesn't mean I'm not in awe of poetry and intelligence. And, you know, I just don't think that unweaving the rainbow spoils it. I think it makes it more exciting. When I see a card trick and I don't know how it's done, and then the magician tells me, I can't wait for him to show someone else who doesn't know how it's done. And how it's done is more exciting for me. Just do you know what I mean? Yes,
I do. And I also sort of don't believe in magic, you know, that kind of stuff. One of the things I spoke to Neil deGrasse Tyson about was that dude, he's amazing, isn't he? Like, I spoke to him about the sort of
quantum physics. All bets are off. We can talk like this till we're blue in the face, and then quantum physics comes along, and there's that saying: if you think you understand quantum physics, you don't understand quantum physics.
Yeah,
it's magic. It might quantum physics, by all our definitions of science and nature, right? And we're intelligent people. We've read of it. We think, right? We've got a good brain. We've got as good a brain as anyone. But fuck quantum physics. It's mental.
Yes. It sort of seems what I like that came up in our conversation, and I sort of used it to illustrate my feeling that the limitations of our senses and the limitations of our capacity to handle knowledge mean that there will always be a realm beyond knowledge, that all scientific disciplines are contingent upon amplification of existing senses, microscopic, telescopic, even calculating devices like AI, and I don't see like quantum physics as woo type magic, but I do see it as an indication of fucking hell. There is an intelligence at work.
It's just we can't. Like some people say, you can't understand it like God can understand it because you haven't got God's brain. Well, that is quantum physics to me. The fact that it happens means it exists and it's true and it's scientific. But then to ask us to understand it, now that's a big ask, because it's incredible. Just the uncertainty principle, the fact that I want it to be metaphor. I want it to go. We don't literally mean it's in two places at once. They go, yeah, we do, because the way the times. Right, start again. Right. I've got 2 potatoes. It's because, and usually it's the scale of things that we can't fathom, but it doesn't mean it's not true. And if it's true, it's real. It's as simple as that for me. And I know that sounds like a linguistic trick for me to get away without actually feeling that I understand it. But it doesn't make it not true. And that's all I think. The fact that I don't understand something doesn't mean it's not understandable. I wouldn't be so arrogant as to think that because I don't understand consciousness and the fact that the universe is expanding, it doesn't mean it's not true. So I think I've always got that get-out clause. I don't have to leap for a being did it, a different being on a different plane and level made it. That's all I don't know. And I think that most people would be satisfied if you sat them down and said, all those things that you think God did, right? He did. He just doesn't have a will like you think he does. He's just nature.
Yes.
And I think some people would be happy with that, I think.
Yes, because will is like, if, as much as I can understand it, strongly related to my individual imperatives, which are based on survival, which are therefore material: need to procreate, need to have food, need to have shelter, need to die. So will, however it might refract through a culture that no longer requires of me that I seek shelter or find food, like all culture is coming from this place. And I think when we're talking about the absolute, whether we're talking about it in sort of materialistic scientific terms or spiritual or even religious terms, it's not going to be something that we can comprehend and understand. And I've always used that as a kind of rebuttal to the idea of why do bad things happen, because I feel like we are on such a narrow bandwidth of all potential realities, of all potential understandable forms and unforms, that our notions of good and bad are inhibited. We are beyond that.
Yes. Well, this is another point. Again, I put it in Afterlife as a bit of a joke, where Kat says to me, if you don't believe in God and heaven and all that, why don't you just go out raping and murdering as much as you want? And I say, I do, which is not at all. And that's a scary prospect that some people, because they think in absolute morality, they think that there's no point in being good without a God. And that's quite a big school of thought that people take that to the nth degree. That go, and my worry is that if you're only not murdering because you think God's watching, that's scary.
Yeah, like it's the purge.
If that's what stops you murdering, then yeah, okay, yes, That's whatever gets you through. So yeah, I don't believe in absolute morality, because I think that we invented morality as a code to live by, so we can all be as happy as possible. You know, there are different laws for different times and different species. You know, the law of the spider is not the same as the law as the human. We know that. If I'm starving, I don't eat my own legs. and when we don't bite the head of the partner afterwards. So it's a nonsense to try and equate morality with nature and spirituality and religion. It is because people got together and decided that the best way to live, you know, that's just society more than anything. And morality existed before any God, in my opinion. Before any God, you know, and they just took the golden rule, which I love, but it's not religion, that, you know, do as you would be done by. And I think it's a really good rule of thumb, and if everyone did that, the world would instantly be a better place, without any God interference. And the other one that I've come to love, probably my favourite piece from the Bible that everyone's forgotten, and I see it more and more in the last 10, 15 years, and particularly on social media, is let those amongst you who is without sin cast the first stone. And I tell you, that would shut so many fucking people up. You know, despite what people think of me, I'm not a very judgmental person in my life, but I go, whatever, you know, good luck to them. You know, I always try and see, I even try and empathise with what you call bad people. I think, well, why do they do that? I'm always willing to, I'd be a judge going, promise you won't do it again. You know, I would, okay, you know what I mean? I really do think, you know, one better 1,000 guilty go free than one innocent person. You know, but we do have to have these societal laws for the benefit of everyone. And the irony is that a secular society would defend all rights to religious belief more than any one religion does. But all it's saying is, let's not make it law, let's not make superstition law, let's not. And it's so funny, I see the hypocrisy in a so-called Christian country, free country, who hate the idea of this fundamentalist state, but they're doing the same. It's just that theirs is a different God. They're doing it with. You're the same. You're the same. You think God is on your side, and you can, you know, your tribe can rule. So yeah, unlike all religions, I treat all religions equally.
Yes. What about, though, secularism is some degree underwritten by economic ideologies and I would say sort of social systems that in a way behave precisely as religions do, in that they impede.
I don't agree with that at all, because all secularism says that we want to separate church from state. That, you know, you don't base any laws on a particular belief in a particular God or religion. You know, that's all it's really saying, isn't it? And you know what? In the freest, most liberal, sensible societies, it is secular, really. But some people go to church, and that's fine. It doesn't bother anyone. But on an exam with biology, physics, and chemistry, the answer isn't God did it. That's all. That's all a secular society insists. You know, this works. Biology works. Physics works. It works over and over again. It's just induction. But I would. People said, if you could, would you ban religion? I go, no. I honestly wouldn't. I honestly wouldn't ban religion. In fact, if someone started banning someone the right to believe in whatever God, I'd march, go and let them believe in that God. It's your right to believe in whatever. honestly, I'd fight for anyone's right to believe in God, goblins, witches, you know, just don't throw homosexuals off buildings and we're fine.
Yeah, I think in the end it becomes God and good become synonymous in any meaningful ideology. That there is a kind of sense of harmony and as best possible fairness and non-intervention.
Well, it's all I've got. Well, you know, I've lost the working class thing now, so all I've got is atheism as my oppression. There's 13 countries where I'd be put to death, and in America we were voted least trustworthy group along with rapists. So I've always got atheism. I'm oppressed, Russell.
In that case, I'm on your side.
Yeah.
Oh, wicked, Ricky. We done an hour there, mate. That's
wow, it's my nap time.
Yeah.